Hi everyone, welcome back to Parenting Insight. This is Esther, and this is part 4 of the series Language, Identity and Status in Kenya. Now, Rita Mae Brown, an American writer, and I hope I've pronounced her name right, said that language is a people's culture. It tells you where the people are coming from and where they are going. And I think this is absolutely true. So today I'm going to tell you about a Kenyan slang known as SHENG. Now, SHENG is a language that was created by the young people. It's a combination of the two national languages, English and Swahili. It was created by the young people because, as I've mentioned in my previous videos, there are 42 ethnic groups in Kenya and about 68 distinct ethnic languages in Kenya. And given that for the longest time there was a lot of rural-urban migration by the youth from different parts of the country to the capital city, Nairobi, young people from all the tribes in Kenya speaking different ethnic languages found themselves in one central place, that is the capital city. Given that not every person in Kenya is comfortable speaking English and not every person in Kenya is comfortable speaking Swahili, and these are the two national languages, the young people needed to come up with a common language that everybody would be comfortable using. And so because these young people came from different ethnic backgrounds, which means they spoke different ethnic languages, had different levels of education, and were comfortable speaking in different national languages, and the extent to which they could use these languages, of course, varied from one individual to another. It meant that there was need to have a common language that was not tied to a person's fluency in English and Swahili and was not tied to any ethnic language. And so SHENG was born. So SHENG is a combination of Swahili and English, where you find a word that has a little bit of Swahili and a little bit of English. Sometimes the young people would play around with words and use them in reverse. And so SHENG became not just a language, it became a culture, it became a way of life. And SHENG continues to be a morphing language. Words are created every day, and SHENG has become so vastly used that many different sub-SHENG languages have been created by young people from different areas of the city. So it's not unusual to find one young person who speaks SHENG that is not understood by another young person who lives in a different part of the city. And that's how much the SHENG language has grown, and that's how much the SHENG language continues to change. Linguists in Kenya have studied the SHENG language and do agree that it's a language that is not about to become extinct anytime soon. And so its uptake is quite large among different young people living in different parts of the country. And I think this is a good example of how language can give identity. Remember, this is a series on language, identity, and status. And I think SHENG is an amazing example of how language can give an identity to a group of people. It's not unusual to find billboards from large corporates in Kenya that are in SHENG, especially if a product is targeting the youth. It's not unusual in Kenya to find radio stations that are run in SHENG. For example, Ghetto Radio. Ghetto Radio is a radio station that reads news in SHENG. Its programs are presented in SHENG. And the purpose of the radio station is to be able to address the concerns of the youth that it serves, of the young people in whose community it serves. And I think that's an amazing thing. SHENG is not just a language, it's an identity for the young people, because remember, they're in charge of the language. They create it and change it as much as they want to. They create the culture around it. There's even music in Kenya in SHENG. As I've mentioned, even corporates have embraced the fact that SHENG is a culture and it's a language, and they cannot ignore the fact that there's a very large market population that would be left out if advertisements continue to be in either English or Swahili. Not every young person in Kenya speaks SHENG because, as I've mentioned, it's an informal language. So it depends on exposure to the language. And again, as I've mentioned, because so many sub-SHENG languages have come up, it depends on the area where perhaps a young person may be living. I would say that SHENG is Kenyan Pidgin. Given the uptake of SHENG and given the growth of the SHENG language among young people, and given the fact that there are children today who were born who speak Sheng more than they speak the two national languages, especially in the cities, because ethnic languages are not really used in the cities because there are so many people from different ethnic groups coexisting together in the cities, especially in the capital city, Nairobi. And so ethnic languages are not really used. So the two major languages used in the city are the national languages, English and Swahili. But there are children today who speak more Sheng than they speak the national languages. You'd find a child only speaks Swahili when they have a Swahili lesson in school. And they speak English in school because that's a school rule. But then once they leave school, they go back to speaking in Sheng because that's their language of socialization. And so they end up speaking more Sheng than they do English and Swahili. A Creole is a formal language that's where there's combination of two or more languages, and it's created out of a need for people who speak different languages to have a common language that they can use. Is it possible that one day Kenya would have to create a formal structure around Sheng so that instead of just being a spoken language, which it currently is, you cannot read and write in Sheng. There's nowhere you can go in Kenya where you can say you want to take up a Sheng lesson. So Sheng is a culture, it's an informal culture, it's an informal language. But given the uptake of the Sheng language among the youth, is it possible that Kenya as a country may one day be forced to formalize this language so that you can read, write, and speak in Sheng, and it perhaps may become the third national language in Kenya? Is it possible that one day Kenya may have three national languages, English, Swahili, and Sheng? What do you think? Let me know. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you on the next one.